I have a huge takeaway on the debate as it relates to housing. Are you both ready for it?
Let it fly, my friend.
All right, here it is.
Go. Come on.
That's it. That was the takeaway. There is nothing to take away.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions and developments in the NAR lawsuit, which seem to be happening every single day, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole, here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine. And Byron and Lisa, we had a presidential debate last night. Big news. And we're not going to talk about the debate so much, but the mentions of housing during the debate. And the first mention came from President Biden's remarks, where he was given a question about the issue that voters consistently say that one of their top concerns is the economy. They mentioned inflation and slowing, but prices remain high. They talked about some costs. And the question was, what do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump? And he mentioned housing affordability. He mentioned a new set of housing initiatives that were announced by his administration in March. And the response was this. I came out of a household where the kitchen table, if things weren't able to meet during the month, it was a problem. The price of eggs, this is going to be a little unclear, so we'll have to clear up what he's actually saying. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, and the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. We're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. I mean, great, I guess. I don't see how they're going to reduce the cost of housing right now. What do you two think about this? Because that was really like the only mention of housing during the entire debate. And Trump kind of ignored it and just moved on. He didn't even really talk about it. I would have liked to see a little more focus on it personally, knowing what we're dealing with and what consumers are dealing with. What do you two think?
Yeah, I think, we've discussed it on a prior pod where most generations are mentioning that housing is one of the biggest factors that they're taking into account when deciding who to vote for this coming election year. And so I think it was a little bit of a miss that. You okay?
Yeah, okay. Just had it. Had a presidential moment there.
A little bit of a miss that it wasn't more discussed, because I think it's front and center on everybody's minds across all generations. So, and I think that this comment about one of the things that they're trying to bring down, I would love to know what the plans are, because I haven't heard any, and I don't think that many people have heard of anything that's working to bring down the price of housing.
There's only two things that bring down the housing costs. And if he pulled off 2 million homes, which I again, love to see that plan for that, that would be one way. If you brought 2 million units to the market right now, which obviously you can't snap your fingers and drop 2 million homes into the market,
right?
That would bring down the cost of housing by supply. So you can bring down the cost of housing, particularly on the purchase side, with an abundance of supply. And that's going to take years. That's going to take releasing regulations. I guess in one way, maybe former President Trump mentioned he didn't direct it to housing, but he kept talking about how he's done the most for releasing regulations. You need regulations to be taken off of the building community for them to realistically reduce. They can't control labor. They can't control material. Regulations would be something that could be helpful. So one way to get housing costs down on purchase side, massive supply. That takes years. We're not likely to see that. There's only another way that housing costs can come down. And that would be destroying the economy, resetting the economy, a massive reset in the job market, job loss at scale. So if a bunch of people lose jobs, the Fed would have to react. They would start to cut the federal target interest rate. You would see the 30-year fix start to drop, and you'd see foreclosures going up with job loss. Those two things combined would create inventory, at a lower cost, and then you'd have the interest rate coming down. So probably realistically, the next time you say, wow, housing is getting more affordable in a big way, it's going to be because of, unfortunately, an economic collapse, which, Tom, to your point, or Lisa, to your point, which is something we've covered previously on the pod, is Gen Z, it's millennials. Number one metric that they're voting on is the state of the economy. The economy's not working for a lot of people in this country, particularly the young voters. Baby boomers own 1/7 of the world's wealth. And one of their top concerns was protecting democracy. Okay, well, yeah, boomers, it's because you've got a whole bunch of money in your bank account. So you want to focus on things that end of empires focus on, where the voters that are on the come up have economy at number one. The economy, how much money they're making, are they going to be able to get a house? Like common things that families and American workers focus on. So unfortunately, I don't see how housing costs do come down without some type of a reset. And I had a conversation this week. You can go on to the at nowbam YouTube channel and check out the interview I did with Stacy Sutter, he's the CEO of Summit VA, but he had the largest REO brokerage in Houston during the run up and then after the reset. He's of the opinion, I mean, watch the whole pod for the interview for context, but he's of the opinion that we have a foreclosure boom coming, an increase in foreclosures. And I listen, I have a hard time calling it a boom just based off of everything I've read, but I value his opinion because he's dealt with it. He's seen it and he's seeing early signs of that coming. So if that were to come, then you will see, a reset. I don't think you're going to, I do believe, here's one thing I do believe. I do believe no matter who gets in that debated last night, and I actually don't think those might not even be the two candidates come November, but no matter who gets in post-November, there likely is going to be some type of economic reset. We were talking before the pod that it seems like almost every week we're getting less of a marketplace of buyers. And so the economy's not working for a lot of people. I think to answer, Tom, the original was like the takeaway here from the debate last night. I have a huge takeaway on the debate as it relates to housing. Are you both ready for it?
Let it fly, my friend.
All right, here it is.
Go. Come on.
That's it. That was the takeaway. There is nothing to take away. That was not a presidential moment for me. That was the point. There was absolutely nothing to take away. It's unfortunate. Elizabeth Warren talks about housing, I think, more than anybody. No solutions. Again, just more pontification. Nobody really has a solution for this. It was a pretty pathetic debate overall.
I actually agree with you.
That I agree with.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
Although I would golf both of them to see if I could become the president. I think I beat them both in golf.
That was actually the most spirited part of the debate where they talked about each other's handicap. I mean, it was fantastic. So
that was actually pretty funny.
You talked about the housing trends right now, Byron. So there was some data that came out that pending sales have come down according to NAR. It's the pending home sale index fell 2.1% from April. And then in May, it was down 6.6% year over year. And they put this number on a scale of 1 to 100. It was a 70.8 in May, and 100 is the June level, or the levels in 2001. So whatever May, June were in 2001. So we're seeing pending sales. Obviously, that's like a lead indicator. We talk about this all the time in our businesses. We're seeing that come down. Then I pulled some local data here in the Metro Philadelphia area we've been educating our team on. We've seen through the end of May, showings are down 12.3%. That's an unusual number in May. If it was June, maybe, but this is through the end of May, which is that's like one of the peak home buying months. We've seen inventory supply, which is how much is on there in the sales pace, is up 27.1%. And we've seen new listings, so the number of new homes that got listed, it's up 3.2%. And closed sales were down 1.5%. So this is like the city of Philadelphia. It's parts of Jersey, Delaware, as well as the suburban counties. So locally seeing that data and that it's happening at a national level, I think that talks a lot about what you mentioned there, Byron, that we're seeing a little less interest now, creates more opportunity for folks for sure. But usually June's a pretty hot month, and I think we're kind of seeing it cool off more seasonally than we have for a while. And that kind of speaks to your point about the economy.
Yeah, I mean, the April data wasn't particularly strong nationally for real estate at all. And then April going into May, the same thing. And so we're at 4.1 million existing home sales. That's seasonally adjusted for the rate of May. That's 2.8% down from a year ago. I remember a year ago where it's like, how much lower can it go? Well, it dropped another 3% essentially. While the existing home sales price went up year over year, about 6% in May. So you have these two going the wrong direction, prices going up, sales going down, and you're just going to continue to see home buyers less interested in home ownership, unfortunately, because of the affordability issue being at the top of the list. And as they go into, there's a lagging effect to this, because people who are buying a home are going to do one of two things. They either own a home and they're going to make improvements to that home to stay there. Lisa's brought this up on the pod many times. Or number two, if they're a first-time home buyer and they're currently renting, they're re-upping a 1-year lease. So they don't come back into the market until next year. So this isn't a problem that's going to be, flipped like a light switch where you're going to have an abundance of sales coming back into the market. This is a prolonged, situation with where we're at the floor of sales. This is worse than at any point in the last 25 years, including the climb back from, 08, 09, 10, and 11, and all of that. Lance Lambert related this back to 1978, the low point of sales. And we obviously have a much larger population. So I was speaking in Dallas this week at 1000 Watts conference, and I said, Mark Davison was a big supporter of BAM. Congratulations to Mark Davison and Brian Boero of 1000 Watt for pulling off a great event down there this week. But Mark always like, Byron, sometimes on the hot sheet, I wish you were a little bit more glass half full, and Lisa's laughing. So I mentioned it on stage. I said, Mark yells at me sometimes for not being glass half full. I said, but real estate is very hard and it's going to get harder. You can look at that as glass half empty. I choose to look at it as a glass half full statement. Real estate has always been hard. It's currently hard, and it's about to get harder. I look at that glass half full because I see opportunity there, because a lot of people, when things get harder, just end up quitting sooner. And so, yeah, it's going to be hard at a low existing home sale number. But for knowledge brokers, I see that glass half full, and I see you being able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I just pulled some data, a single family home data for Massachusetts here. And it's funny to look at like the, year to date stats as compared to year to date last year. So like year to date stats on number of units sold. So in 2023 year to date, we had sold 15,584 single families. This year to date, 15,801 single families. So pretty flat, all things considered, right? Maybe up a percentage point or two. But when you look at the rolling 12 for listings that have sold single family homes, on a rolling 12 months at this date last year, we had sold 41,748. And then you look at that rolling 12, so taking into account the past, and we're at 36,848, which is a really substantial drop and kind of indicative of, I think, where things are. I feel like we're getting softer here too, despite the fact that sales show that they're a little bit up, but the number of listings that we're signing is so low, and showing rates definitely down. We're definitely seeing slowdowns in showings as well. It's going to be fascinating.
So that was Massachusetts?
Yeah, that was Massachusetts. Single family. So I didn't roll in condos or multis, but singles.
All right, I'll do single family. By the way, in the comments, if you're particularly listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like the video, by the way. That'd help us out a lot. but drop into the comments what it is for the rolling 12 in your market. Put the rolling 12. You did closed sales, Lisa, that was?
Yeah, closed single family units in the state of Massachusetts.
So closed single family units in May, right? So June won't come out for another week because we're here at the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
But May rolling 12, same metric, 25,800 plus, so just about 26,000. May of 23, that was 30,500. So in Connecticut, it's a 5,000 gap difference to the negative, down 15.2%. And monthly, which you would expect, May went up a little bit from April. But when you look at pending sales, pending sales were up a little bit in May too. So that's the data there. But closings down about 5,000 or 6,000 year over year.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
That's a lot of opportunity there in the market, for agents, particularly when May of, 21. Let's see, what was May of 21? If I go back to rolling 12, that was 46,000. We're talking about 25,000 now.
That's huge.
That's a huge gap.
Big gap.
Here's something. I was talking to Sharran this week out there, and he's got a great way of breaking things down simply for for agents to be able to articulate to consumers. And he said there's two things really a buyer needs to know. Obviously, a buyer that's really thirsty for as much knowledge, you can educate them on a lot more things than this. But there's two things that every buyer needs to understand. And knowledge brokers, I think this is a nice little tool to have in your tool belt to make sure that they understand these two things. Number one, am I in a seller's or a buyer's market? So nationally, we're at 3.7 months of inventory. In the state of Connecticut, it was 2.1 months of inventory right now. What is it in Mass and PA?
1.92.
So 2 in Pennsylvania.
1.75 in Mass.
And that's what we're seeing across the Northeast, really, really like 2 months of inventory on the average in the Northeast. Nationally, it's 3.7. Nationally, it's up year over year from 3.1 to 3.7. There are some markets, Punta Gorda, Florida, for example, is up over 6. Once you swing up over 6, you become a buyer's market.
That's the line.
So just helping a buyer understand that there is a line that once you are under the line or cross the line, there's going to be leverage for the buyer or for the seller. So overall market, who has the leverage? You can break that down to price point. You can go further on that. The price points could exacerbate months of inventory one direction or another. Buyer needs to understand that. The other thing, a buyer, this one was great. A buyer needs to understand the 3 ways a seller prices their homes. Above market value, aspirational, unique home, yada, yada. Market value, based on the comps, based on CMA, or, competitively pricing the home below the market value. And if you explain to a buyer, here are the 3 ways sellers price their home, even if they don't even know the strategy, they fall into one of those 3 categories naturally, right? And as a buyer agent, as a knowledge broker, you should leave every showing and say to the buyer, which of the 3 strategies did the buyer or did the seller pick on pricing their home? Because now if that's the home for them to be able to go ahead and write an offer, oh, well, they used aspirational pricing. Really? You thought that was aspirational pricing? And you can dig further and really get oh no, maybe that was market-based pricing. Oh, that's competitive pricing. That's going to change the game. Oh, that's competitive pricing. Maybe we shouldn't do an escalation clause here. Maybe we should go in for the kill and present our best offer first. Go, instead of doing a weaker escalation clause where you get mixed in with a bunch of them, maybe we should wow the seller because they've competitively priced it. It's going to create potentially an auction-like environment, as opposed, they're auction-like pricing, and I'm at 4 months inventory. I'm getting closer to a normal market. I might have a little leverage in that situation. The creation of the offer becomes an easier conversation when you're including them in coming up with, hey, what strategy did the seller use?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
I love that question because I just I shared a chart here in the Slack channel. It just shows nationally what's going on, that active listings are greater than new listings right now. So we're seeing that build.
Yep.
And if an agent is maybe struggling with a client, right? They keep losing out on houses. They pick all the ones that hit the market right away. Well, you ask that question, Byron, and then in our market, and this is going to be a different number everywhere, like 12 days, that's like a red flag to me. Or actually, I would say a green flag, because that means commission dollars could be coming. And that's the homes you want to get in front of your buyers, because they may be a little priced a little high. And you can set the price adjustment for the seller with your offer, right? So you're not forcing the seller to bring the number down. What's one of the things sellers say all the time? Why doesn't everybody make an offer, right? To your point about the 3 strategies, Byron. So if you can set the price adjustment for the offer and get it sold, which is what the seller really wants in the first place, and find out, hey, what are you willing to go to on this house? We know it's aspirational pricing. Get the offer in maybe a little below that number, plan to bring up with the counter so the seller feels like they won a little bit, they got something out of it. That's what knowledge brokers are doing right now. Remember, that was like the strategy before 2020. I can't tell you how many times I did that. We're going to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. So you're future pacing your client to get where you think it's going to sell for based on the data. You're asking them what they think, so they're kind of getting there on their own. There's opportunity.
Tom,
go ahead.
No, something you said there that Sharran didn't go into, but I think he'd probably agree with this if there was more time, is that conversation with the listing agent is just as important. And that's what you just described, as opposed to, here's a mistake that agents make all the time. Like, how'd you price that house, Lisa? Or, geez, we're making an offer, but you guys are way overpriced. Well, you're setting a bad tone working relationship right off the bat. Hey, Tom, hey, Lisa, I see that you guys went with aspirational pricing strategy. In all likelihood, that's probably the strategy, if I had the listing, that I would have gone to the market with. We're obviously going to present an offer closer to, where the value is coming in at, and we're hoping we can work together to get to a number that works for everybody. That to me is, hey, now we're in negotiation. We're respectful of each other. We're acknowledging that you chose a strategy that's totally cool. You did your job. You're getting us to bring an offer to the table that we hope is presented in a respectful manner. It's not an attack of how'd you pick that price.
Great language.
Yeah, I just did a training with the team about that this week, and I had a PDF, maybe I'll share it and we can post it out, of the questions to ask of a listing agent before you submit an offer. And that was definitely one of them. Based on your comps when you were pricing this home, where did you expect that offers would fall? Super powerful question, and takes it to be totally non-confrontational.
Yeah, and I love, using magic phrasing, like me and Tom love the Phil. We all love, all 3 of us love some of the Phil Jones magic phrasing. Like, hey, I'm sure if I was working with the seller, I would have chosen the same strategy, right? Like, most people want to be like most people, like align with that listing agent. Because listen, by the way, every buyer agent who's complaining about the price that the listing agent has chosen to go to the market with has also used aspirational pricing strategy on a listing in the past, unless they just haven't had enough listings. Okay.
Yeah. So have you guys taken overpriced listings? Because I know I have. It's ridiculous. And I learned this you guys remember these CRS designations like they used to have, like back in it was so I forget the gentleman's name. I think it was I have to think of this. It was a really good instructor, and he goes, it was Ed Hatch. That's who it was. And he goes, do you want to be the agent that's right and doesn't sell the house, or do you want to be the agent that sells the house? And you see, you point to it at the MLS. I told them that was the number. Well, great. You didn't get the listing and you didn't make any money or help these people. So, Byron, what you're talking about is spot on. I think we got to get less out of judgment and more into, hey, we're here to work together. Let's put some deals together and figure this out. Great stuff.
All right, Tom, what else? I know you're in your beach house in
hey, I'm working, man, just because you bought a permanent beach house. You live in Naples, Mr. Glass House over there. So.
Yeah, I don't go to the beach, but we want to get you back to your summer fun there. What do we want to wrap up?
I have a long list of calls to make today.
I'm just going to say, when Byron says summer fun. I'm having flashbacks to a picture in a car wash, and like
I would look a lot better in that picture right now. So
that's
I
going to
would
be
actually be more confident.
Tom Toole on the beach with his like beer in one hand, and
I don't drink beer, Lisa. It hurts my tummy. I drink spiked seltzers and cocktails. So we actually got some pretty interesting news, I thought. The MLS buyout by a private equity firm in Colorado. I think this is fascinating to me. I want to get Byron's take on this as well as yours, Lisa. And so what happened here? And just to give everyone, let me get to the right tab. Is that it was the Colorado MLS, REcolorado.
Yeah.
There was a proposed sale to a private equity firm. So this was an MLS that was owned by two boards of realtors out in Colorado. All of a sudden, now there's a letter of intent signed with a private equity firm, and they're getting a little nervous. I think it was the vice president. Her name was what is it here? So basically, the short of it is they went on and they're like nervous now. This is getting sold to a private equity firm. I see this as the sharks are starting to circle after the NAR settlement, right? I mean, I think one of the biggest merits of that case is the MLS forced member of NAR and your local association tie-in that exists. I think the private equity firm, one, you don't see private equity show up if they don't see a money-making opportunity. Let's call it what it is.
Yep.
And two, there's more of this to come, right? We've seen Bright step up. We've seen CAR kind of come out and say we're not. We see the Northwest MLS. Now we see an MLS getting sold to a private equity firm. What does this mean here for people? I think this is going to be more and more of this stuff happening personally, and it's going to be and like of course the MLS is trying to fight it, but there's opportunity here for sure for a lot of business people.
I think I'll let Byron comment first, but I think the one thing to add into this is this isn't a small MLS. Like this
the 16th largest in the country.
Yeah, so this is a big player in MLS world, right? So it's I think when you kind of look at it and when Byron gives his take, understand that the take is like the impact could be far bigger just because of the size of the MLS. So go ahead, Byron.
Validation is my take. I've been saying it for a while now. I said it to here in Connecticut. I said it to a local board CEO, Rich Barton. If you read between his lines in when I heard him speak at T360, I guess everyone didn't get to hear. I think I broke it down though on something. Rich Barton, when he talks about the NAR settlement, he obviously goes into what's right for the consumer, buyer agency, and all these types of things. But the other thing he always says is we must protect the MLSs. So the validation is who has control when the dust settles? MLSs do, not the boards. So if I see this, I'm very concerned if I'm NAR, if I'm local boards, because private equity owning the MLSs, they don't care about legacy board relationships. They care about making money. Imagine Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank coming in and buying an MLS. Do you think he's going to put an NAR pin on his sports jacket? I don't think so.
Maybe if he got a royalty in perpetuity for the NAR pin, then he would probably do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, if they paid him royalty.
That's how he does his deals.
Yeah, he's going to care about making money. You get PE into these MLSs. How do I squeeze money out of this? And if that takes squeezing the board out, they'll do it in a heartbeat. So big loser on this will be the boards. You could see a higher cost for your relationship with MLSs for the agents. Also swings the power into the MLSs, because if I'm an agent and my MLS costs continue to rise and I have the option of getting out of the board, it's like something might give there on just baseline costs. And of course it's going to be board over MLS. So yeah, I mean, I just think this proves the point. MLSs are in a premier position to gain more control over the industry when all this kind of settles.
I'm on the same thought pattern. I really don't have anything to add. So,
well, and this isn't the only story coming out around the commission lawsuits, right? We also had the DOJ decided to make some other statement. They filed a some sort of briefing in the Rex versus Zillow case, basically saying they disagree with the case and it's without merit in terms of the ruling, and it's around the optional no commingling rule. And I think it just proves the point that, Byron, you said it, the DOJ's out there trying to break stuff right now in the real estate industry. And this is another case that's been ruled on. And they're coming out again and talking about it. Lisa, you have some with the, they talked about your MLS PIN as well.
Yep.
If you want to share that. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of this stuff happening. And I look at it as everyone's jockeying for position right now to see who's going to be in the best spot to take advantage of the new environment, which, real estate agents and knowledge brokers, I think you really just got to focus on serving clients right now and kind of tune out the noise a little bit. That's just my opinion. What about the MLS PIN lawsuit, Lisa? I'd love to hear your take on that as well, what the DOJ said.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a busy week for news with respect to MLS PIN. So I think when we got on the pod last week, I mentioned that literally just before we filmed the pod, MLS PIN had put out some correspondence saying that they were moving forward with their own path, which was not eliminating the commission fields or compensation fields, but just making it so that it was 100% optional, so that you could put in a 0 and there would be no impact. And then what shook out during this week is that the judge who was, kind of ruling over that case had granted a preliminary approval of the settlement and has actually come out based on some of the DOJ involvement and said that she's staying her ultimate decision pending the results of what's shaking out with the bigger NAR settlement. So I don't think that we've got the full shakeout yet and no real understanding of what's actually going to happen. But I think what it means is MLS PIN might end up not being able to move forward with their settlement. It may not get approved by the court, which would then force them to potentially follow the same terms of the settlement that have been shaken out with the bigger case in the NAR, the Burnett Sitzer and, all of that stuff, where the commission field is actually eliminated. I think it's fascinating to think about because I know we keep talking about the Northwest MLS, but they weren't involved in litigation, unlike MLS PIN, but had kind of taken the same stance that field actually provides transparency as opposed to decreasing transparency, right? So I think it's going to be not fun, that's not the right word. It'll be interesting.
Is your idea of fun, Lisa? Is lawsuits around around commissions?
Lisa's definition of fun is a little different.
But it's going to be fascinating to watch it shake out, right? And does anything happen with the Northwest MLS? And really, does the DOJ get their way in the MLS PIN case and no select? And I think if that does go forward, I think that sends an even broader message to the rest of the industry as well. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. It's almost like DOJ wants to see if they can win a smaller battle.
Correct.
Over there, with MLS PIN before they move on, because they've been kind of slow to move on the overall NAR settlement.
Yep.
They've kind of let Catchmark run with that ball. But if they get this little win, not little for obviously, Massachusetts agents and brokers, but on the grand scheme, get a little battle one over here. Now they move on to the bigger one and have some momentum and some precedent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I mean, and that's a classic attorney move. Is you win at a more winnable scale where it doesn't take as much, capital, effort, time. Then you've got precedent, right? How many times you hear attorneys talk about precedent in cases? I mean, that's how they're built. So very interesting. I got one last thing to add here real quick, right? So all this noise is going on. I mean, listen to all the stuff we talked about. Does any of this really help real estate agents' business, you two? I don't think so. So if I'm an agent right now and a knowledge broker, we're running this at our team. I'd encourage everyone does the same. You got to have a plan to take advantage of the summer, right? I think a lot of people, I mean, Byron, you're busting my chops about being down the beach and all that, right? All in good fun. I'll get more done the next couple hours than most agents will all week. And there's got to be some sort of plan to keep your business moving, because we just came off this like spring season. So I would really encourage people, we're at the midpoint of the year basically, right? I don't know if you guys do this, but let's maybe recommit to our business plans. Like we're calling it the summertime surge plan. Like, what are you going to do every week? What are the intended results by Labor Day? And the first thing there is plan your time off and plan your time on, So, when you actually need to be working and can get things done. I think every knowledge broker needs to be thinking about that right now, because it's real easy to take your foot off the gas. You got presidential debates, lawsuits, MLS news. The sky is falling. You know what's going to help your business the most? Talking to people, going on appointments, and selling houses.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
The macro stuff that we're talking about, it's important for every knowledge broker to know. I mean, the best question when somebody brings up the lawsuits, oh, tell me what you know. Tell me what you've read about it.
Bingo.
Tell me how you understand it. Here's the thing about that question. A lot of agents are like, oh, that's a great question. Ask great. I'll just go with that. That's my script then. And then they say, I'm not going to keep up to date on all of this information because I'm just going to say, tell me what you know. Well, what happens when you run into somebody who's well read on it? Once you ask the question, Tom, tell me what you know, and you have a consumer, maybe they're an attorney themselves, or they just like reading about this stuff. They love reading Wall Street Journal, whatever, and they start spitting fire.
Mm-hmm.
You better be able to navigate that conversation. That's why having an understanding of all of this is super important. You're going to get into, I hear agents all the time, I want to get into a higher price point. Well, you better elevate the conversations in the rooms that you're in. You better elevate your knowledge to be able to jump into the higher price point, because it just simply comes with that. Okay. And so I would know about this stuff. And to Tom's point, and I think I said this earlier in the pod, or something I said down at the conference earlier this week, just understand it's getting harder. So you're going to have to do more when you're talking about 30% less transactions than we were seeing just a couple of years ago. You're going to have a real commitment and a real discipline, and have a plan in place, like Tom was talking about.
Totally. And just, I think Tom's point also, I lean into this, do the work, right? Like it's so easy to get caught up. The one thing that I'll add is I actually think we're beyond the midpoint when you really kind of look at.
I agree with you totally. I'm just talking about in a calendar year, just to be very clear.
Totally.
The year starts in like November or December. It's not now. Or January.
But I think that there's still, despite the fact that transactions are down and, there's noise, I tell people there is more opportunity now than there has probably ever been. And it's going to be grabbed by those who are willing to lean in, do the work, and just block out the rest.
Yeah. Yep.
Great way to end the pod here.
Hey, shout out to Tom Toole the fourth. If you follow Tom Toole the third on Instagram, you saw he had a big moment at the Phillies game throwing out the first pitch. We definitely know who the athlete in the family is, Tom.
Yeah, well, it's never been me. I mean, that's fine. He also had a big hit in the his team won the Lower Merion Little League Championship this year, and in the semifinal, they were getting mowed down, and he bats last in the order, gets a huge single, turns the lineup over, and started a 6-run rally. So it's been a big summer for Leo. So
was JJ Redick the coach, or was his coach going to now be the coach of the Yankees?
I mean, he's got some great coaches that he's been with for 3 years. So, shout out to Coach Graham and Coach Scott. I think Coach Scott, my wife, might actually listen because she's a real estate agent. So I mean, those guys are awesome. So in all seriousness, it was very cool. Also got to thank you to REmax for making that happen. Like, REmax is a corporate sponsor, and they reached out to myself and my dad to throw out the first pitch, and Tom Jr., there's too many Toms, he said, my grandson's doing it. And my daughter Bryn got on the field. You've both met her. She's a maniac. And I'm just glad she didn't ruin the chalk line down. That was the big instruction she got beforehand.
I just met a REmax broker over in Pittsburgh. Ed, darn it, I'm going to lose the last name now. But Pittsburgh, like about 400 agents. And we were chatting about you, Tom. He knew exactly who you were. So.
Very cool. Sarah, you've actually talked to Sarah Byron. We had a text message exchange with her. She's our regional VP. She made that all happen. Very grateful. That was a super cool moment. Makes me look like a better parent than I am, and I'll take it. So it was fantastic.
Sarah, get Amy on the pod.
Yes.
CEOs are welcome anytime. Love to have her. All right. Awesome, guys. We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMX.